At 89, Engelbert Humperdinck still walks onto a stage. That alone confuses people, not because his voice fails, he can still sing, but because of the quiet that follows him. Decades of noise that once defined his life, the schedules, the decisions made on his behalf, the endless distractions, have vanished. Today, there is a pause before he performs, a stillness he never needed before. 50 years ago, he was a man swept along by events, by fame, by industry demands. Now, that silence feels deliberate, human, almost fragile, and it carries more weight than applause ever could. Early life and fragility. Before the world knew him as Engelbert Humperdinck, he was Arnold Dorsey, a young man navigating illness and uncertainty. Tuberculosis confined him for years in the early 1960s, leaving his body weak and reminding him of fragility that would never leave. This vulnerability was largely invisible to the public, but shaped him profoundly. By the time fame arrived, he had already endured a near erasure of his own life. The sudden rush of attention, contracts, and recordings met a man who had learned early how quickly circumstances could shift. That knowledge informed both his art and his endurance. The rise to fame. The late 1960s were transformative. In 1967, Release Me did more than become a hit. It blocked the Beatles from the UK #1 spot, a seismic cultural moment. Overnight, Arnold Dorsey became Engelbert Humperdinck, a figure polished, controlled, and presented as a romantic counterweight to rebellion. The music industry adored him. Audiences trusted him. Cameras found him photogenic. Record labels found him reliable. Behind the charm, a carefully structured life was already in motion, balancing fame with personal constraints. The man on stage and the man behind the scenes were already two separate realities. The role of Patricia Healey. Patricia Healey married Engelbert in 1964, before the fame, before the whirlwind of tours and television appearances. She was never a public figure, never a headline, but she was the stabilizing force in a life defined by external demands. For decades, she quietly absorbed the shocks that might have undone him, keeping routine steady, holding schedules in balance, and preserving a sense of normalcy. While the world celebrated Engelbert's reliability and charm, Patricia was the invisible structure that made that reliability possible. Her presence allowed him to remain both human and professional, a rare combination in the entertainment world. The machinery of longevity. Engelbert's career was never accidental. Longevity in entertainment requires more than talent. It requires discipline, subtle adaptation, and endurance. Song choices shifted slightly, tempos softened, wardrobes evolved carefully. Repetition became a tool rather than a trap. Tours blurred into one another, flights and hotels repeating with mechanical precision. By the 1980s, his career had largely shifted to live performance in Las Vegas and touring circuits, where audiences expected reassurance, not disruption. Dependability became his hallmark. Unlike others who chased reinvention, he stayed steady, a figure the industry could rely on, a constant in a world defined by impermanence. Performing through the years over decades, Engelbert became less visible than the machinery around him. Interviews reflected gratitude and luck rather than ambition, a recognition that continuity is fragile. Fans came to expect a certain pacing, a certain sound, a certain presence, and while the public focused on the polished performance, the quiet work behind the scenes, careful scheduling, self-discipline, adjustments to suit evolving audiences, went unnoticed. Being dependable in show business was, and remains, exhausting. Behind every appearance was the endurance of a man who had already known fragility, whose life was shaped by both illness and the structures of fame. Slowing down. By the 2000s and 10s, touring slowed. Choices became deliberate. The pace of travel and performance eased, but the shows continued. Then came 2021, a year that shifted everything. Patricia passed away after a long battle with Alzheimer's and complications linked to COVID-19. For over half a century, she had been the constant element in a life defined by external demands. Her absence was not explosive. There was no public unraveling. But privately, the world Engelbert had relied on, quietly organized, predictably structured, ceased to buffer him. The pause before his singing, the moment of counting or measuring the space around him, became his new normal. Coping with loss. Loss at that stage of life compresses rather than explodes. Time stretches strangely. Evenings fold inward. The stage, once a performance space, now provides structure. Friends noticed a subtle change, but struggled to articulate it. He kept performing, not to assert relevance, but to maintain rhythm and continuity. Stopping would have created a louder silence than continuing ever could. The audience sees only the man on stage, but every note carries the absence of someone who had quietly held him steady. Presence, it seems, can be both performance and survival. The difference between being admired and needed. Engelbert spent most of his life being needed more than admired. In the 1960s and 1970s, pop music was competitive, fast, ruthless. Artists appeared, disappeared, and sometimes returned under new guises. Engelbert remained a reference point, reliable and steady. Promoters, managers, and audiences trusted him to deliver consistency. That dependability required constant adjustment. Success was not dramatic. It was a matter of preservation, repetition, and control. This reliability created a career that outlasted fads, fashion, and scandals, proving that longevity is often a quiet, disciplined form of mastery rather than a flashy conquest. The quiet of repetition. Behind the polished appearances was a life defined by routine. Hotels, flights, and performances blurred together. Conversations reset nightly. The same jokes, the same compliments repeated in slightly different forms. Comfort was rare. Endurance was constant. The illusion of ease hides years of meticulous adjustment, the internalization of repetition as a survival mechanism. Maintaining relevance over decades is not glamorous. It is repetitive, constraining, and often lonely. Yet, through it all, Engelbert's public persona remained steady, reassuring, and unshakable. That quiet labor, invisible to fans, defined the arc of his career more than any chart position ever could. Stages as anchors. As the decades passed, younger acts cycled through fame faster than ever. Engelbert became a fixture rather than a headline. Live performance became both a profession and a lifeline, providing structure amid the disappearance of old colleagues and friends. Time behaves differently with age. Presence and routine become vital. The stage no longer offers novelty. It offers shape. He continues not for ambition, not for applause, but to maintain rhythm in a life emptied of familiar scaffolding. In these performances, the pause before he sings is no longer a stylistic choice. It is a human response to absence. Reflection on human endurance. Living long teaches restraint, humility, and patience. Names fade from memory, faces survive only in photographs, and the public moves on while life continues in small increments. Engelbert's recent performances are not heroic. They are human. They show the persistence of someone who outlived the infrastructure that once carried him, who continues despite the absence of the constant he depended on. Time, memory, and loss reshape life quietly. The audience sees a singer. He experiences a life compressed by endurance, repetition, and devotion. Humanity, not spectacle, defines these later years. Conclusion: continuing on. At 89, Engelbert Humperdinck performs not to reclaim relevance, but to maintain rhythm. Stages, audiences, and songs offer structure where once there was only constant motion. He continues quietly, steadily, after decades of being needed by others. His life is a testament not to fame or scandal, but to resilience, repetition, and human connection. The pauses before his songs, the lingering endings, and the unhurried pacing are the language of endurance, love, and survival. In a world obsessed with headlines, his story reminds us that continuity, care, and quiet presence are achievements of profound significance.